But go ahead and take a moment. I'm going to do this standing. You can stay seated if you want, but just take a moment to bring yourself to standing if you're going to move into the walking option. I'm just going to raise this. And you don't need too much space. You can turn around and walk kind of back and forth in a circle. So you really don't need too much space at all. So let's just get started by finding a balanced position on both of our feet. So you might sway a little bit from side to side and just see if you can land in a relatively still posture, checking in with your spine. Maybe rolling your shoulders back a few times just to sort of open up the chest and the heart. And settling into relative stillness. And for this practice, you can keep your gaze just low towards the floor. So this will help with balance in the beginning and of course help you find your way around when we move to walking. But just take a moment as you rest in a standing position to feel into those points of contact between the soles of your feet and whatever floor or earth or surface is supporting you as you stand. You might just take a moment to scan the body to see if there's any knees that might need to be gently unlocked, shoulders that need to be dropped, maybe a belly that wants to be softened. And if you're seated, again, in the same way, just scanning the body and rooting into the points of contact between your body and the floor. And before we bring more movement into the body, see if you can explore where movement already exists. As you breathe, can you feel the way the body effortlessly moves? Expands and softens. And if you'd like to have your eyes closed for this part, you can, if that helps you to tune into that very subtle movement of breathing. Maybe there's Subtle movements in your belly, from digestion, or maybe your body has a very subtle sway to it. Just noticing those very, very subtle movements as you breathe. And if your eyes are closed, maybe just gently blinking them open a little bit, keeping your gaze downwards. I invite you to begin by just bringing some very, very slow, mindful movements, maybe into your knees, bending one, straightening, and bending the other, straightening, and maybe moving your hip slowly to the left, slowly to the right. Just finding some kind of rhythmic movement to explore here. If you're seated, maybe turning your head gently and slowly to the left and to the right. Just noticing what it feels like to move intentionally, minding each subtle movement. Knowing that there's no right or wrong way to move. Just treating this as an exploration of your body's capacity to move. Maybe rolling your shoulders very, very slowly up towards your ears and back. Down and forward. Just noticing what it feels like to move your body in this way, however you're moving your body right now. And then slowly make your way back up to a neutral standing position. Checking back in with your breath. And if you'll be exploring walking with this same quality of mindful presence, shifting your body to be positioned towards the direction you'd like to walk in. And noticing all the very subtle movements that it takes to get into that position. And then coming into standing in that position. So, unlike the way we normally walk through the world, with this practice, we're not trying to get anywhere. We're just exploring the movement of walking. And if anyone is seated, I'll offer you instructions in a moment. But when you're ready, the instructions for walking are simply to take each step with enough presence and a slow enough pace to note lifting, shifting, and landing. So when you're ready, you can lean your weight into your left foot, and then note as you lift your right foot, lifting, shifting as you move it forward, and landing. Feeling your weight shifting into your right foot, lifting, shifting, and landing. And you can take this at your own pace, just silently noting those movements, lifting, shifting, landing. And if you're seated, you can practice this with your hands, maybe on a table in front of you. So lifting, falling, and landing. Lifting, falling, and landing. Lifting, shifting, and landing. Just taking this at your own pace, a pace that you can note each of these subtle phases of each step. And when you turn, seeing if you can bring the same quality of presence as you turn. So these words are your anchor for this practice, lifting, shifting, landing. But you might notice your mind drifts away from these movements and from these anchors. And if that happens, just noticing whatever is present. Just noting the thoughts, not judging the thoughts or softening judgments of whatever thoughts might be present. And then coming back to the movements. And as Thich Nhat Hanh said, walk as if you are kissing the earth with your feet. So see, explore what that invitation might be like. Just noticing if those words change anything about the way in which you walk. As you walk slowly and mindfully in this way, maybe taking a moment to scan the rest of your body and see if there's any unconscious contraction that might like to be relaxed. So maybe the shoulders can soften, maybe the hands or the belly, muscles in your forehead. Seeing where you might soften, and then coming back to lifting, shifting, and walking, or lifting, falling, and landing. If you're seated and you're exploring this with movements of the arms and hands. Remembering to breathe, lifting, shifting, and landing. And taking your time, but slowly making your way back to the position, the standing position or the seated position that you started in. So if you're walking slowly, coming back to your original standing posture. And if you're seated, slowing your movements, resting your arms and your hands. As you arrive back here, either seated or standing, just taking a moment to place one hand on your belly and the other on your heart. And you can close your eyes if you like, or keep your gaze low. Again, just sensing into that very effortless movement of your body as you breathe. We often think of seated or standing as still postures, and relatively speaking, they are. But there's always movement in the body. Just taking a few breaths to feel into this movement. rooting back into the surface beneath you. So feeling your feet on the ground or your bottom on the seat you're seated on. Maybe taking a clearing breath. And taking your time to transition from standing, if you're standing, into a comfortable seated position. And we can close this session with some reflections about this practice.